I'm William, training to be a voice actor. Tome Shredder. I got from Magic the Gathering. So here we go. I'll be reading The Prince by Machiavelli, and this is a note on translation. In this translation, I have sought to be as literal and exact as is consistent with readability of English. Since I'm convinced that Machiavelli was one of the greatest and subtlest minds to whom we have come across, I take very serious to the translator's obligation to present a writer's thought in his own words, insofar as possible. It did not seem to me my duty, therefore, to find a rough equivalent to Machiavelli's words in up-to-date colloquial prose, and avoid cognate at all cost. For example, I am not embarrassed to translate provincia, province, in pratia, fatherland, because these English words are perfectly unintelligible, even though they are not the expressions we would use today. It is worthwhile trying to retain the connotations of these words as Machiavelli used them, as well as trying to avoid the connotations of their modern equivalents, such as nation. With this intent, uh, with this intent, uh, With this intent in translation, I have tried to retain some flavor of Machiavelli's style by preserving his favorite expressions in some of his crowded sentences and difficult grammar. If this result seems a little old-fashioned, so it should. Machiavelli's text will live without our help, and it will die if we suffocate it with the sorts of hospitality that allows it to live with us only on our terms. To repeat, Machiavelli's text will live without our help, and it will die if we suffocate it with the sort of hospitality that allows it to live with only us, live with us only on our terms. As to exactness, I would have liked to never to vary the translation of such important words as impresario, modo, respeto, but I found it impossible to produce a readable version with such a rule. I've kept virtue as virtue, so that the readers of this translation can follow and join the dispute over the meaning Machiavelli attaches to the word. If his use of it sounds strange, as did when he wrote and still does today, then the reader wonder at finding something strange. It is not the translator's business to make everything familiar. For some of my departures from consistency, I have noted the literal meaning in the notes. I have certainly not varied the translation merely for the sake of elegance. We should not be so certain that we know that Machiavelli's key terms are or concepts are. Frequently he will use a word or a phrase several times in close proximity, and such density of usage can alert us to the importance of that word in the context. His pronouns are often ambiguous in their reference, and I have sometimes had to make a choice that he leaves open. I have indicated in the notes the occasion on which Machiavelli departs from his usual familiar you and addresses a formal or plural you, a you who is asked to see, consider, or think something. In the spirit of accuracy, I have not provided the long historical notes to explain Machiavelli's examples. The Prince is not a history book. It was written, we believe, in 1513, and it was dedicated, we know, to Lorenzo de' Medici. But it was written for the future and addressed above all others, including Lorenzo, to whoever understands it. This does not mean that the readers who want to understand the Prince can ignore Machiavelli's examples and merely make a list of his sensational assertions. On the contrary, those assertions are always modified, sometimes even contradicted, by their examples. But the examples will not serve as examples if the reader does not look carefully at the information Machiavelli gives him. He may miss the point if he allows his information to be superseded by the superior historical knowledge of our day. The text of the Prince has many variations arising from the facts that no original manuscript in Machiavelli's hand exists, and that the work was not published in his lifetime under his supervision. Those who want to examine the philological scholarship seeking to establish an authoritative text should begin with the article of Quaglo listed in the public bibliography. I have followed the text of Casella for the most part, adopting some variants where they seem appropriate. Such are the principles of this translation. I have profited from other translations, especially from that of Leos Paul Saint de Alvarez. If the reader thinks my translation is a bad one, let him try his own. If he thinks it's a good one, let him learn Italian. And that was the note on translation, written by the author or the translator, Henry Harvey C. Mansfield, second edition.